Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott. Today we're going to introduce another author to the pantheon of authors that we have covered on the Reality Revolution. We've covered so many incredible authors, philosophers, scientists. Neville Goddard, of course, being very popular, but we've also covered a number of others. Dr. Joseph Murphy, Orison Swett Marden, Alan Watts. So many different wonderful authors, and they've all contributed to an overall understanding as I consider this to be an ongoing course in reality creation. Some of my favorite are the old authors that wrote books that had wonderful knowledge in them, and one of them is Frank Rudolph Young. Now, Frank Rudolph Young wrote a book called The Laws of Mental Domination, and I would not read the book because I think in many ways it is service to self. The whole focus of the book is on mental domination of others. So a lot of this stuff is about dominating other selves, which is not a good thing. But when you read the details of the book, there are some techniques that you can use to dominate yourself, your own mind, to master your own mind. So one of the things that happens, as discussed by Quo, when you choose to be of service to others, the service to self path can try to dominate you and people can get walked over. So one of the things that you can do is learn how to control and master yourself. There is a really interesting chapter in his book on the laws of mental domination, on how to attain and retain mental domination over yourself with the Khudd Ozonta. Now, I've looked this up, and I think he made up the terms Khudd Ozonta, but it has some techniques in it that you can use to gain control over your mind. Now, why is this important? If you go all the way back to the beginning of the Reality Revolution, I've covered reality transurfing, and the idea there are pendulums that can dominate and control your mind, and you lose energy to them. One of the processes that you can do is learn how to balance your mind and gain control over it. There are different techniques to gain control of your mind so that you are not influenced by outside pendulums, powers, or other forces which will detract and take you away from your own reality creation. If you are attempting to help other people, how can you help other people if you're being mentally dominated? So it's important to create your own force field of domination over yourself, because there's the ego, that part of you that wants to go out and do things, and you may not have control of it. So the Khudd Ozonta techniques are pretty powerful, and you can add this to the pantheon of different techniques we've introduced, but this should help you if you're wanting to master yourself. Self-mastery may be the most important aspect. Gaining control over your attention, focus, and will give you a greater ability to control your reality. And oftentimes when I talk to people, that's what they're struggling with the most. They know they want to create their reality. They have a reality that they want to create, but they don't control their own minds. Oftentimes because a pendulum has taken control of their environment or situation, or their family, or social circumstance. So how can we gain control and dominate ourselves, our own self, to let go of ourselves? So that would also allow for us to not be dominated by others. Take this for what it will. I do not advocate mental domination of anybody, but it is helpful to have the ability to persuade others. And by studying techniques that advertisers and military and other people use, you understand how other people can dominate you. You understand what techniques they're using. I'm always reading these techniques. So when you understand what techniques people are using, it defangs their power. But more importantly, if you have control over yourself, nobody has any control over you. Now, who is Frank Rudolph Young? Frank Rudolph Young was a chiropractor, a bodybuilder, an athlete with a background in dentistry. He developed a system of exercise called Yogometrics, which served as a system of bodybuilding, health enhancement, and spinal alignment. The system of exercise was based on isometric tension, flexion, and an emphasis on decompressing the spine. He was also someone who saw the interconnection between mind, body, and spirit. I do believe he had an incredible grasp of health and body and how the mind and body work together. And he had several pretty darn good books. The Secret Mental Powers, Miracle of Mind Magic, The Secret of Spirit Thought Magic, The Secret of Psychic Power Control, Cyclomancy. They're all really interesting and worth exploring. And he was dedicated to finding and opening the mental powers of the mind. How to attain and retain mental domination over yourself with the Khudd Ozonta by Frank Rudolph Young. No matter how successfully you may mentally dominate other people, most important of all is to dominate yourself. 1. When you dominate yourself with your own mind, you far more easily dominate the minds of others. 2. When you dominate yourself, you can also improve yourself in any category you wish. You can overcome any bad habit, adopt any good habit, adjust yourself to any situation, control your temper, prolong your health and your life, banish nervous tension, think more practically and accurately and less emotionally, learn new skills faster, be difficult to be influenced adversely by others, come back strong after any setback, retain any position of leadership easier, ward off crippling prejudice and misleading logic. You stop being just another citizen in the crowd. 3. After you mentally dominate yourself, as you will with this law, you lock your whole power of mental domination in your subconscious mind with the Khudd Ozonta, the secret trick revealed to you at the end of this law. Thereafter, should you ever feel the least bit of a lessening in your power of mental domination, simply apply the easy Khudd Ozonta, and in the flicker of an eyelash, your power of mental domination over yourself, as well as over others, will return in full force. Now you see why the present law is the climax of all the other laws. Mental domination over yourself is the ultimate goal of all life, the goal of self-mastery. It is the goal to which the mystics and yogis devote their whole existences, and the results they achieve with it are so incredible that other men who have but tapped the surface of self-mastery call their feats miracles. Success, happiness, popularity will all be yours in a much shorter time when your control over yourself increases by only 25%. With this law, it should increase from 100% to 1,000%. The immediate block. The first thing to learn in mental domination over yourself is the immediate block. You cannot control yourself with your mind unless you can free yourself from the shackles of worry. All day long, if you are sensitive, you will suffer wherever you go, from slights and insults, and from hostile thought messages from individuals who dislike you at sight or otherwise. A major portion of these messages will be purely imaginary on your part, but enough of them will be genuine enough to start you worrying, since you can't waste hours of your life in the unprofitable struggle of getting and overcoming psychological complexes. You have to develop the immediate block to prevent them from implanting themselves in your subconscious mind in the first place. Don't wait, in other words, until you are worrying chronically about an oppressive influence before putting an end to it. Block it out of your psyche the moment you sense it disturbing your peace of mind. Rubberize yourself against it with the immediate block, as we'll described in the exercises below. Don't shirk the issue by thinking about something else. That only pushes the already implanted psychic virus deep into the nerve cells of your brain. At once, when you feel that gnawing within, oppressing you following a misunderstanding with someone, halt all introspection before the psychic virus fastens onto you. Exercise 1. Call back to mind a situation in which someone annoyed you to the point of losing your temper. Perhaps a practical joker injured you painfully, or an unscrupulous storekeeper sold you worthless goods. Perhaps a teacher innocently or ignorantly undergraded you in school. Perhaps someone you esteemed highly, either a social friend or romantic friend, failed to keep an appointment with you. Perhaps your superior unfairly, but not maliciously, did not recognize your stalwart qualities and favored someone else over you. As your dander rises against him, relax all the muscles of your face and body. Rubberize yourself is a vivid description of exactly what to do. Relax the frown from your brow, the tension from your lips, the hunching of your shoulders, the clench from your fist, the tightening of your leg and foot muscles. As a reflex, your muscles will relax your mind. Your muscles, in common language, help out your mind by giving it the idea what to do. When your mind cannot tense the muscles of fight or flight, it becomes like a gun without ammunition. Maintain this until you feel no anger, whatever. It won't take long. This is the immediate block. Following such an upsetting experience, your fury will return repeatedly for some time afterwards. Neutralize it each time with the immediate block until the experience ceases to affect you. Exercise 2. Call back to mind an incident in your life when someone called you an insulting name, particularly before other people, and obviously did so because he envied or disliked you. Even though you have not laid eyes on the offender for years, the unforgettable insult has smoldered within you ever since, keeping you bitter and suspicious of other people. Bring back that enraging scene to your mind. But as soon as your wrath wells up within you, apply the immediate block. Exercise 3. Recall the scene all over again, and again apply the immediate block. Repeat that about a dozen times, purposely dragging back the unsavory experience into your mind despite your instinctive revulsion against it. Emasculates it of its upsetting effect upon you quickly, because it compels you to face it outright again and again. By at once applying the immediate block to it every time, you get used to applying this defensive power at will, until you can obliterate with it at will any upsetting situation from your mind. The immediate block is even more effective than the thought vacuum because it uses the muscles to relax another part of the body, the mind. By relaxing the muscles, which are more easily controlled, you also relax the mind, which is more difficult to control. The immediate block, your mind power protector. The immediate block will conserve your mind power all day long, leaving it fresh for profitable application whenever you need it. Your brain possesses a specific amount of energy for instant use. If you waste it on inconsequential everyday encounters, you will possess less of it for the encounters that mean something. Nobody, not even your wife and children, despairs over how fatigued your mind is. They call you an old crab. In fact, when you show signs of mental weariness, you just have to protect yourself daily against every untoward drain on your mental energy, particularly from unpleasant people. Do it effectively with the immediate block and conserve your mind power for the proper occasion. How to prevent another person from dominating you. In order to dominate your own mind, you have to prevent others from dominating it first. You cannot and will not be dominating it if someone else is doing so already. The most effective way to prevent someone else from dominating you mentally is by using the immediate block. The moment you feel uneasy, in a quandary, and unable to control yourself against the influence of another person, apply the immediate block on yourself. And why? Well, if the other person is influencing you against your will, your brain will be rebelling against him and tensing your brow, your lips, hunching your shoulders, clenching your fists, legs, and feet. The moment you counteract this effect by relaxing these muscles, you oppose and nullify those muscle contraction messages from your brain. The other individual grows discouraged when he senses that he is not influencing you in any way and will stop sending you psychic commands. You will then be free of him and be ready to mentally dominate yourself. The difficulties of mentally dominating yourself. To mentally dominate yourself when you are a child or when you fanatically believe in something is simple. But when you are an adult with a mind that sees both sides of questions and which is more sophisticated, the domination of your own mind can be a Herculean task. To dominate it completely, in fact, you'd have to be a mystic or a yogi. Do not expect to dominate it altogether otherwise. Psychologists proclaim that everybody has two brains, that each half of his brain is an independent thinking unit. One of them is more willful than the other and predominates. That is usually the left half of the cerebrum, which explains why most people are right-handed. The great majority of nerves cross the brain and spinal cord to the opposite side of the body. In left-handers, the right half of the cerebrum is the more developed. In the stammer, both halves are probably developed equally, or so nearly so. They battle for supremacy over his words. The conflict tenses his vocal muscles, and he stammers and stutters when he talks. The more mature and sophisticated you become, the more the two halves of your brain equal each other, and mental domination of one of them over the other grows increasingly difficult. You don't suffer from that plight when you are influencing another person because the two halves of your brain are in agreement as to what you want to accomplish. Such is not the case when dealing with the all-important you, and each carries its own convictions as to what is best for you. You therefore cannot achieve mental domination over yourself without reverting to the childhood or fanatic stage once more and letting only half of your brain prevail in the situation. How to mentally dominate yourself. The best way to learn how to mentally dominate yourself is by studying an example. Example, you're a smoker. You're alarmed at the controversy against the habit and wish to stop smoking. You agree with the anti-smokers and are anxious over the health hazards for which the habit is blamed. That is the right side of your brain, the weaker side, thinking. But you have been smoking for years and are attached to the habit. When you don't smoke, you feel miserable. Since everybody who smokes won't suffer seriously from it, you tell yourself, should you go ahead and keep on smoking? That is the left side, the stronger side of your right-handed thinking. For you to control the habit with your mind, you have to increase the strength of the right side of your brain, the weaker side, to the point where it not only equals, but also surpasses that of the left side. At the same time, to reach your goal faster, you have to decrease the strength of the left side of your brain until it not only just equals, but also is less than that of the right side. Technically speaking, you don't have to strengthen or weaken the whole half of your brain, but just the area of it concerned with the habit of smoking. The rest of that half remains as it is from the smoking standpoint. How do you strengthen the weaker half of your brain, which is against smoking? There are 4 steps not to pursue. Step A, do not use logic. Don't tell yourself that you have to stop smoking because it's deleterious to your health. If you do, you will be hesitating and changing your mind from day to day, as both sides of the tobacco question are brought to the fore regularly in the newspapers, with the special interests favoring the one side and the reformers favoring the other. Since your opinion of the habit does not affect your mental domination against smoking, you're not urged to alter it. Just don't remind yourself of the health hazards blamed on smoking, of the expensiveness of the habit, or of any cause which the other half of your brain could argue back against, right or wrong. Argument and debate between the two halves of your brain are fatal to developing mental domination over yourself or over anybody else. It is even better if both halves of your brain agree on the question and act in concert, as you do when you exert mental domination on another adult or upon an animal or object. Then that one side should grow in strength until it is stronger than the other, and the other side should diminish in strength until it is weaker than the other. Step B, do not punish yourself for failing to carry through your anti-smoking resolution or for continuing to smoke. Punishment arouses resentment, and resentment leads to rebellion, and in time the rebel grows increasingly difficult to subdue. Step C, don't set a definite date on which to stop smoking and patiently wait for it to come. So many mixed emotions enter into such a decision that it is hard to carry it through on schedule. And should you fail, it is natural to shrug and believe the fiction that you can't break the habit. Step D, the only step to take, is the one that permits no arguments, makes no threats, and sets no time. Steps A and B create nervous tension, and that in itself drives you to smoke more. Step A allows you to too many loopholes of escape, for you can argue any question indefinitely. The step to pursue is Step E. Step E. The easiest, most uncontestable decision to make is to say simply to yourself every time you crave to smoke, "I have quit smoking." And say no more. No argument is necessary. You have not smoked again from the time you smoked last, so you have quit smoking. You resume the habit only when you smoke again. But every time the urge comes on, say to yourself once more, "I have quit smoking. I have quit smoking," and obediently put out the cigarette, cigar, pipe, or whatever else you're addicted to. This procedure, of course, sounds too naive to be practical, but it is far more practical than you think. Both halves of your brain agree, after all, that you have not smoked since the last time you did it, and that you therefore have quit smoking. To summarize, combat no craving to smoke with logic, but only with the phrase, "I have quit smoking, I have quit smoking." With that phrase, you don't threaten to punish yourself for smoking, because no punishment is necessary if you already quit. No definite day to quit needs to be set because you have already quit. Other thoughts, of course, will rush into your brain to try to counteract this statement, but meet them instantly with the same statement. "I have quit smoking, I have quit smoking." By continually repeating that fact to yourself every time you feel like smoking, it will gain in power with time. Best of all, both sides of your brain share this factual view, and no logic or argument or rebellion can be aroused against it, since both halves agree that it's exactly what you have done, namely that you have quit smoking. The same is true with any habit you wish to drop. Use the same factual approach until it finally factually means, "I have quit smoking for a month, 6 months, a year, 2 years, in other words, indefinitely." All other ways of trying to break a bad habit have the drawbacks of logic, self-punishment, time setting, habit-forming drugs, etc. But the way taught you in this law has no such failings. It is habit-forming, but then so much better. That is the way to acquire mental domination over bad habits. It is simple as that. The Khudd Ozonta. The Khudd Ozonta is the secret trick for locking in or restoring your full power of mental domination over yourself in the flicker of an eyelash. The Khudd Ozonta also prevents others from mentally dominating you. Now that you know how to mentally dominate yourself as well as how to mentally dominate others, you want to know how to retain this staggering force for the rest of your life. This is achieved easily with the Khudd Ozonta. How to create the Khudd Ozonta. 1. Stand or sit relaxed alone in your room. 2. Suddenly imagine that you are lodged within a giant light bulb, 7 feet tall, standing on its metal end. Visualize the bulb light up a bright yellow from the power of your mind and blind all people nearby into enslavement. 4. You will immediately retain or regain your full power of mental domination. The Khudd Ozonta is stunningly effective because 1. Having done the exercises in the laws, you have already conditioned your mind to exert mental domination over yourself. 2. When you visualize the giant light bulb enclosing you, your aura immediately creates a protective shell around you. 3. When you visualize the bright yellow blinding light, your mind projects overwhelming psychic power. 4. Your subconscious mind, as a result, is stimulated to project Goliathan autosuggestion, or glamour autosuggestion if you're a woman. 5. The rest of the laws are then quickly suggested to your conscious mind, like a spark dropping into a dry bush and spreading swiftly into a forest fire. 6. Those around you are quickly brought under your control and you step forth as mental master. Practice the Khudd Ozonta until you can do it instantly. Visualize it perfectly with its yellow light as bright as a searchlight seen close up. Thereafter, your power of mental domination will be yours to retain always. Now, you can see here, he emphasizes domination of others repeatedly, and there's really no need for you to do that. But the point is that you can control yourself, and it's a way of breaking a habit that can be pretty disastrous. Now, at the end of that, they mentioned the Goliathan and glamour autosuggestion. I'm going to read portions of that chapter so that you can get an idea of what he's saying, and these are additional ways that you can find power over your mind. Goliathan autosuggestion is a mental domination law which gives you a knockout punch. It is also a dramatic and exciting law to practice and apply, particularly if you're a man. If you're a woman, you will find it a potent aid for physical self-defense should the occasion arise. The great athletes feel invincible during competition, and that helps them to trounce their rivals or break records. To feel invincible, you have to learn Goliathan autosuggestion. The other contestants long to defeat you, too, but with Goliathan autosuggestion, you destroy their self-confidence and reduce their efforts. At the same time, you augment your own self-confidence and increase your own efforts. Again, there is no need for you to reduce anybody's self-confidence. That is the way the book was written. It goes on to say, the power consists of imagining yourself to be growing so big in the eyes of the other person that he visualizes you as being larger and consequently more powerful. With it, immortal actors of short stature have influenced the public into perceiving them as being tall. They have stepped out on stage bursting with the feeling they possess enormous physical stature, and to the audience they appeared to be remarkably taller than they were. They did not swagger, strut around on tiptoe, stretch their necks, or try to spread their shoulders. That would have brought laughter from the crowd. They limited their feelings of size to their minds and suggested, through command thoughts to the spectators, that they were much taller. The power of Goliathan autosuggestion cannot be applied successfully the first time you try it. At first, people will view you as being but slightly larger than you are. The better you learn Goliathan autosuggestion, though, the more immense you will be taken for being. When you excel at it, you will be able to persuade others, especially when you meet them alone, to envision you as being as much as 4 or 5 inches taller than you are. As an athlete or as a man or woman on the street, you may be able to discourage an aggressor effectively with this power alone. Goliathan autosuggestion, the decisive factor in everything you attempt. Once you find out how dynamically Goliathan autosuggestion can sway the minds of others, you can understand how dynamically it can sway your own. Goliathan autosuggestion crowns you with the psychological edge you need. It fills you with the guts you require in a bitter contest with a dangerous rival. The guts to fight on, despite everything, and pound out a victory even if it is close. Do not confuse Goliathan autosuggestion with blind courage to rush in wildly in a boxing match, taking unnecessary punishment just because you lack the patience to study the science of boxing is not applying Goliathan autosuggestion. The same is true in business. To keep trying blindly against competitors who outclass you is not applying Goliathan autosuggestion. Champion athletes usually break records only when extended or when forced to break them to win. Otherwise, they only win. When pressed closely by feared rivals, they perform beyond their normal capability by drawing upon their reserves with Goliathan autosuggestion. How to acquire Goliathan autosuggestion. For enlarging yourself, exercise 1. Stand before the mirror and stare at your image. Keep staring at it and imagine yourself growing 1 inch taller right before your eyes. Practice the exercise for several minutes until you grow faster and faster right before your eyes. Exercise 2. Stand before your mirror and stare at your image. Keep staring at it and imagine yourself broadening 1 inch at the shoulders, 1/2 inch on either side, right before your eyes. Practice the exercise for several minutes until you broaden faster and faster right before your eyes. Sit down and rest when you are tired, then do these exercises again until you can grow or broaden instantly. Exercise 3. Stand before your mirror and stare at your image. Keep staring at it and imagine yourself growing 1 inch taller and 1 inch broader, both at the same time. Practice the exercise for several minutes until you can grow and broaden faster and faster right before your eyes. Sit down and rest, and then do the exercise again until you can grow and broaden together instantly. Exercise 4. Repeat exercises 1, 2, and 3, but now grow and broaden 2 inches each way instead of 1. Exercise 5. Repeat exercises 1, 2, and 3, but now go 3 inches. Exercise 6. Repeat 1, 2, and 3, but now grow 4 inches. Exercise 7. Grow 5 inches. And exercise 8. Now grow 6 inches and broaden 3 inches. Of course, he has other exercises that seem to use the dark side of the force in looking at the mirror and imagining rivals as shrinking, but we won't go over those now. He also has a technique for glamour autosuggestion, which consists of looking at the mirror and imagining that you're 20 years younger, that your face and body are sexually alluring, that your feet and calves are lusciously formed, that you wear clothes like a romantic movie actor or actress, that your voice is sonorous or pretty, and that you're slim, and that your face carries mild, placid, sympathetic expression. So this might help you if you're struggling with your own self-confidence, or if you're struggling with others reducing or belittling you in any way. The idea is that you have immense power and you can control your mind. There is no need to mentally dominate anybody. Once you come into your own power, you can still be of service to them. When you see other people as yourself, then there's less competition and you don't necessarily worry about mentally dominating them, but you can maybe help them change their thinking patterns. So I don't want to go too much further into this book because it is entirely about the domination of others, which is not what we're trying to do. But it is important to master your own mind, and Frank Rudolph Young is helpful in that. Now, Frank Rudolph Young is fascinating. His other books, these are all quite different than what I would normally talk about, but his other books are not as much about domination. So I recommend you reading that. Now, The Secret of Spirit Thought Magic is interesting. That's another book that he wrote, and it has some very unusual techniques where you get super angry and then you use the energy of your anger toward your manifestations. I have not found any success in that, but I do find the idea of controlling yourself and your own mind very interesting to explore, and perhaps the Khudd Ozonta can help. It appears the technique he's discussing is an expression of your solar plexus chakra. So there may be some utility in magnifying your solar plexus if you want to retain willpower and to control the power of others. If you feel like you're being dominated, then there are ways to fight it. The service to self is all about domination. We are being dominated by advertisements on TV, by politicians, by the most subtle of techniques. And if we are going to serve others, one of the things we can do to help serve others is to reduce their own domination from others. So I tried to delicately go over this without giving you too much information about dominating others. That's not important, but you can control your mind. And here's one aspect of using the powers of your mind to control yourself, overcome habits, and anything else that's related to that. So I hope that helps. Please put in the notes if any of these techniques helped you, if you've been struggling being dominated by others or your own mind, and if these techniques helped you. The only way that we can really learn is if we test these out. All episodes of The Reality Revolution can be found at therealityrevolution.com, and welcome to The Reality Revolution.